Hello once again from the Prim Reaper. Well, I was working on the next chapter of my Insidious Aspects of Social Justice series, was partway through the script and had a good train of thought going and everything, but it's been interrupted by all of the white noise going on with the discussions around abortion. This is not the first time this has happened, and I didn't bother to write a video on it then. I settled for writing a measly little Facebook rant and calling it a day. But now, not only do we have the same thing coming around, but we have what seems to be even more divisiveness and crap-slinging than ever, so I thought I would go ahead and drop the other shoe and express my thoughts here. Now, just for very brief context, let's look at the issue that is bringing this subject to the fore again. I must begin by stressing that I am not a lawyer, nor do I live in Texas or even the United States, so this will be a heavily truncated description, and I am sorry if I don't phrase things exactly right. Basically, the long and short of it is that the U.S. Supreme Court did not strike down a new Texas ban on abortions following detection of a heartbeat, which in some cases can occur as early as the 6th week in pregnancy. For those of you who don't know, the first 2 weeks of pregnancy actually occur before ovulation, so this really doesn't leave a lot of time for people to make this decision. The Texas Senate Bill 8 allows people to sue doctors or anyone else involved with providing or even helping to provide an abortion beyond this point. From what I can tell by reading about it, there is a whole bunch of finicky little things involved in this process that just add to the complication, but for our intents and purposes in this discussion, these are really the main details we are concerned about. Essentially, abortions are now restricted to a very short period of time in the actual pregnancy, and other people are allowed to get legally involved if anyone tries to have an abortion beyond that. The important thing is, abortion is now more difficult to obtain in the state of Texas. Now, this video is not going to be a commentary on my thoughts on the validity of either the pro-choice or the pro-life stance, okay? Neither is my personal stance on the subject of abortion itself going to be the main focus of the video either. Because some people may be curious, however, the Cliff Notes version of my opinion is this. It is a procedure I would prefer to avoid myself, barring a few exceptional circumstances. Thankfully, it is never something that I have had to confront personally. But regardless of that, I believe that the procedure must be accessible to others, or else we will have people dying or suffering serious injuries or infections trying to access abortions in unsafe and unsanitary conditions. For me, it's all pragmatism. Ideally, we would all have better access to proper sex education and birth control, and abortion would become a far less necessary procedure. But for many people, this is just not the case, and many people are going to wind up pregnant who really don't want to be. And if they have no medical access to the procedure, then there is a chance that they might start getting creative with it, and things can just go very south from there. I want things to be going south as little as possible. Unless going south would lead to fewer unwanted pregnancies, But anyway, putting all of that business aside now, what I really want to talk about is the discourse between people that inevitably swirls around every single time you see this topic come up. As you may suppose, very rarely does this discourse take any kind of respectful form where we calmly listen to the perspectives of people on the opposing side and provide our own counterpoints in a reasoned manner. No, unfortunately, we have this same kind of polarized, hyperbolic tilting at windmills that we always have, where everyone seemingly purposely tries to miss the point of the other side's views or intentions as hard as humanly possible. I really don't think that access to abortion should be so freely available. Well, you're just a misogynistic man who wants to control women's bodies. No uterus, no opinion. I strongly believe in a woman's right to choose whether she wants to continue a pregnancy. You're just a psycho who is content with murdering babies. I hope I don't have to explain to everyone here how these kinds of posts are just inflammatory and miss the point completely. I have found in this, and in the previous time abortion was a particularly hot-button issue, people have been jumping to extreme claims like these examples more regularly. It's like one of those subjects that we just seem to be losing the ability to approach with anything other than blind emotion. Of course, these claims in almost all certainty probably do not accurately represent the views of the individuals who made the original statements at all. I mean, call me crazy, but I'm guessing that most people who are pro-choice do not have any interest in the free murder of infants, nor do most people who are pro-life base their decision on the desire to maintain an iron grip on random women's actions. This applies to pro-lifers who are male or female, but of course it's always men who get that extra level of oomph added to the accusations levied against them. Although, if you think about it, taking a page out of the SJW playbook for a moment, the no uterus, no opinion comment could absolutely be seen as discriminatory against trans women, or women who have had hysterectomies, or who have non-functioning reproductive organs. Hey, you argue from a place of blind emotion, and you may have some holes in your logic. Who knew? Anyway, why don't we instead take some time and calmly explore some reasons on both sides of the fence for why people may have the beliefs they do. Gentle reminder that I'm not here to necessarily endorse or oppose any of these views, merely highlight examples that are not just the most extreme negative inflammatory thing we can come up with. So here we go. For example, let's look at our pro-life fellow for a moment. Rather than assuming that he has some fixation on how this woman conducts herself, he may instead simply be focused on preserving the life of the fetus. After all, the fetus has its own DNA distinct from the mother, and if left alone, it will likely progress to the point where it is born and becomes a human on its own. He may believe that, under most circumstances, ending this life is a sin or otherwise unnecessary loss. Alternatively, he may not even be focused on the woman or the fetus at all, but instead is simply repelled by the idea that abortion should be an easily accessible procedure. He could fear that this might make promiscuous behavior more likely by removing some of the perceived consequences of such actions. Or he may think in another direction, that abortion should be less easily accessible, but that birth control and sex education should be more easily accessible. And let me just quickly touch on the fact that the pro-life stance is not one that is based on a gender split. That is, polls taken at various times have regularly shown a nearly 50-50 split on both men and women being both pro-life and pro-choice. So the folks who act like this is just an issue of men trying to control women's bodies are missing the fact that a large number of women find the procedure to be similarly detestable. Now, what about the pro-choice individual? I'm certain they're not deriving any joy whatsoever out of killing babies, and I'm sure many of them do not even believe that is what the procedure is doing. After all, many people, even those who are pro-life actually, believe that abortion is acceptable only up to a certain period in the pregnancy. This period varies for a lot of people. For some, it is the point of viability. For some, it is the start of the second trimester. For some, it is earlier, like the aforementioned law where the heartbeat is considered the cutoff point. Prior to this point, abortion may be considered acceptable because it is just an embryo or just a fetus rather than a full-fledged human, or because a certain period of time allows people to check for abnormalities that may compromise quality of life. Some pro-choice individuals, on the other hand, may believe abortion is acceptable at any point in the pregnancy because the woman's right to autonomy over her body trumps all. Others may believe it is acceptable only under certain conditions, like when the fetus is the product of a sexual assault, or when the mother's life is in danger. And many people, pro-choice or pro-life, may feel that multiples of these reasons apply, and in differing strengths. I'm sure this is not a comprehensive list, and it's really not meant to be. It's just meant to highlight the range of views that people may have on the subject. It's a topic with a vast array of shades of gray, which is really why it is so difficult to come to any kind of real conclusion on it. But let me tell you, nobody is making any of this any easier by trying to turn it into something black and white. But hey, let's be real. Most people who are going into this subject wielding nothing but emotional hammers aren't looking to make this subject easier, are they? They're not out to convince, or to have intelligent debate or polite discussion. They may be just trying to shut the conversation down or block out any opposing views. They may be doing this because they feel that their views are absolutely correct, or that they find others' views to be uncomfortable and they don't want to have to confront them. They may be trying to discredit the other side by trying to make them look ridiculous, or make the problem look easy so that other people say, "Gosh, I've never thought about it that way, but you're totally right," and begin passing around whatever little quote or image like it's some great discovery. So, rather than trying to focus on the important thing of what we should do to minimize total harm and suffering and maximize the benefits to individual women, those who have to contemplate the abortion in the first place, men, who obviously helped facilitate the pregnancy and who may or may not have a vested interest in the outcome of said pregnancy, children, not just the unborn, but also those who currently exist and who may have their lives adversely impacted by adding further unwanted children to the picture, and society at whole, who may have to help shoulder the added burden of welfare for unwanted children, we instead waste boatloads of time, energy, and tax dollars on playing political and legal hot potato with a subject that no one seems willing to put on their big kid panties and talk about like sensible adults. Not to mention, we spend time on topics we've already discussed to the moon and back instead of talking about issues that have comparatively gotten very little attention, but nevertheless still impact people severely. Like, say, the ability for men to seek financial abortions in the case of children that they have no desire to parent. Nope, we can't have that. We have to keep rehashing the same old shit, except with progressively less and less respect for anyone else's intelligence. Sweet! When we talk about important subjects this way, nothing gets accomplished but rage baiting. But hey, the way things are these days, maybe that is the ultimate goal after all. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.